So today is a really fun, exciting day because we are going to learn how to use colored pencils. We're going to begin with a very simple colored pencil practice, just a worksheet to help you learn the process and the techniques for using colored pencils successfully. In my class, we're going to be using Prismacolors. They're my favorite brand. I always recommend these for my students, and you may have the Prismacolor Premier or the Prismacolor Scholar. So the Prismacolor Premier is their top quality colored pencil line, and if you're going to buy a 48 pack of that, it usually costs around $50 or $1 to $1.25 per pencil. The Prismacolor Scholar is one step down below that. It's a little bit more affordable, but still a very good quality colored pencil, but it's only about $30 to $35 for a 48 pack. And I always recommend a 48 pack for my students because I feel like that gives you a really nice range of the color palette to really have all of the colors that you need. So since these are a big financial investment in working with colored pencils, I want to talk to you about how to take care of them and make sure that they last as long as possible. Trust me, my first set that I ever bought, I've had for over 15 years now, and they're still great and in good condition. So these will last you a very, very long time if you take care of them. So first thing, the colored pencils, the inside is made out of wax and pigment. And Prismacolors and other high-end colored pencils are known for using a really soft wax, which allows you to layer a lot of colors together and blend those colors beautifully. Other lower end quality colored pencils are much harder and have a more brittle wax, which doesn't layer or blend as well as these. You'll notice a big difference in the quality once you start using them. So my first tip for taking care of your colored pencils is to make sure that you never drop them. That will accidentally shatter all of the wax on the inside, which will ultimately ruin your pencil. Another really important tip is if you ever have a brand new pencil like this one, look for the code at the end of the pencil, and that code tells you the replacement color. So you never want to sharpen it on that end, you instead want to sharpen it on the opposite end. That way, as you use it up and you get it down to a little small tiny nub like this one, you'll still have that code at the bottom and you'll know which color to buy as a replacement for it. Another really important tip that I can give you is to always use a handheld pencil sharpener when you're sharpening your colored pencils. This is going to give you more control and more precision with how much you sharpen it, so that way you don't over sharpen your pencil and end up wasting and sharpening a lot of your wax away. This will ultimately let your pencils last a lot longer. So you never ever want to use a colored pencil in an electric pencil sharpener, and there's two important reasons why. First off, the wax from colored pencils, especially in soft colored pencils like this, will end up clogging up an electric pencil sharpener and eventually burning up the motor. The other reason too is that you will over sharpen your pencil and end up wasting a lot of your wax, and ultimately they just won't last as long as if you hand sharpen them. So now that you know how to take care of your colored pencils, let's start in with our practice worksheet. You can use the side of your worksheet to practice and make extra scribbles if you need. I really like to wear down a nice flat part of the lead that will help me shade more smoothly. So for this first step, you're going to be creating a value scale using one single color, moving from light to dark. And this is really meant to build up the fine muscle control in your hand. And we're going to be using small circles instead of lines to shade this. So don't use directional lines, instead use little small circles. And you're going to see that the more pressure you add, the darker your color is, and the less pressure, the lighter and softer your value is. Now, and for my lightest color, I usually like to hold my colored pencil much further back. That allows me to shade very, very lightly and softly where I need just a little tiny light layer of color. And so once you have your 5 values laid out into this value scale structure, go back and double check and make sure that they're nice, even jumps in value and that you don't have any that are too close or too far apart, but that it should be nice, even steps as you move up that value scale. Make any final adjustments that you need. Now, the reason why I have you start with this very simple value scale first, with just one color, is because I want you to understand the process of light pressure moving to heavier pressure. And in working with colored pencils, you always start with light, soft, delicate layers, and then you build and build and build those layers, gradually increasing your pencil pressure to where the final pencil pressure should be as heavy as you can get it, like in that 5th step. Even if it's a light color, everything in a finished drawing should be that very last step with full pressure. And the reason for that is because that last step is going to blend and smear all of those previous layers together to give you one smooth, cohesive coverage. The other 4 steps, as you can see, they all have little specks of white, the white of the paper showing through them. And you really don't want that in your final finished product. You may start that way, but as you add those layers, you want to build it up to where it's that really smooth, solid, heavy coverage. So now we're going to move on to the next step of this learning process, which is to figure out how colors blend and mix together. I want you to choose 2 complementary colors, and I'm going to use just orange and blue for my set of colored pencils. And we're going to create a saturation scale where it starts out with colors on opposite ends that are bright and pure, and then as they come to the middle, they get layered together and they become really desaturated and almost turn into a neutral, where those 2 complementary colors neutralize each other as they mix with a 50-50 ratio in the middle. So I'm going to start off with light to medium pressure with one color. I'm starting with orange, and I'm going to gradually bring that across the paper, across that scale, fading it out before I get to the other end. Just very gradually layering in that first step. And then I'm going to go back across with the blue colored pencil and start on the opposite side with a light layer and start it on the right and layer it in, gradually fading it out to the other side. So this is what my first layer looks like, where I have my pure colors on the outside and they're gradually overlapping and layering in and fading out to the opposite side. Now I'm going to start in with a second layer using a little bit more pencil pressure and go back in with the orange, a little bit heavier, and blending it in and fading it out to the left. And then I'll go back in with the blue and fade it from the blue back into the orange from the right side. Now I'm going to keep layering in these colors using more and more pencil pressure, working back and forth with the orange and the blue to create what looks like a very smooth, faded saturation scale. And in the middle, as I build up and I've got that full pressure working back and forth between those 2 colors, they start to physically get blended and smeared together on the page, creating that nice, smooth, gradual transition that we want. And once you're finished with that, I want you to answer questions 1 and 2 below it based on what you learned from that process. We're going to be completing the color matching section tomorrow, so leave that blank for now, but you should be able to have the top portion complete.